being here with us today. We're so delighted to have you. Thank you for agreeing to be here. And I know that, our viewers are going to be absolutely blessed to hear your story on the Rising Strong video series, Oluseun. So first, I would like you to talk to us about yourself and your immigrant journey.
My name is Oluseun Olayinka. My immigrant journey is in multiple levels, and that's important to note because we've had to travel and live in 2 different countries. The first time was like everybody's first time, a lot of culture shock, and the experience that, for example, one, the realization that I'm something extra called Black, as opposed to a female and a first kid of 5 and a brilliant person and a smart person and someone that has everything on their inside to contribute to their world. The second journey has been a bit better, I guess, because that first one built in me a resilience of my originality and who I really am.
Right.
Those years gave me the opportunity to ask myself questions around who are you really, irrespective of who you are.
Take a step back. Who are you really, irrespective of who you are?
Where you are.
Of where you are. Okay,
Did I just say who you are?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I wanted you to unpack that for me. Okay, that's fine. Yeah.
So it's about who are you really, irrespective of where you are.
Yes. Okay.
The second thing that I think that the first set of years taught me is that you can lead across cultures by listening. And so I developed a deeper skill in listening because I was listening to multiple languages / multiple accents and multiple people's experiences in one space. And so I built an ability to listen and hear what everybody had that was unique to them, and not just what was unique to me. And one of my life mentors had taught me many, many years ago that when I meet anyone or when I enter any space, my first assignment was to seek to learn and hear and not to be heard. And so what I took from that and what I have used in that is to always wonder, who is this person and what is this space? Because the second part of the lesson from this mentor was that until you learn who that person is and what they bring to the table, you would always have conflicts. But once you learn who they are, what they bring to the table, then you would align who you are with who they are and what you bring with what they bring. And that, I think, is a principle that I operate life with as a person, is wherever I get to and whatever I am doing, I want to know who is that person.
Yeah.
And what do they bring?
Yeah.
Because already I have done something. I know who I am and what I bring.
Right. Okay, so just to put some perspective to everything you have shared, I think you dived right into, the juicy, amazing stuff already. Like, I've learned a lot already from what you've shared, but I just wanted to put some perspective. So in terms of the first immigrant journey, you're talking about your journey in United Arab Emirates, that's Dubai specifically. Okay, and then the second one now is your journey in Canada, right? And in both cases, you were in UAE to work, right?
Yes.
And then here in Canada, you came here as a skilled immigrant, right? An experienced person. Okay, that's fine. That's wonderful. I just wanted to put that perspective. And then I would also like you to tell us a little bit more about yourself in terms of what you do right now, your full name, what you do, and maybe other activities that kind of take your time that you engage in.
That will be helpful for you to ask your clear questions. So that's very helpful. Okay, so my full name is Oluseun Olayinka. Oluseun means gratitude to God. And that bit is always very important to me because I think it forms how I live my life with a lot of gratitude.
Right.
Currently, I'm the executive director at a Canadian charity called Adventure for Change. Adventure for Change is in the north of Waterloo. And we work with unreached, unnoticed, often ignored neighborhoods in that part of Waterloo, giving people the opportunity to rewrite their own stories by inspiring change and enabling hope.
That's beautiful. That's amazing. And I like, so it's wonderful that you said this, because when you were talking about your immigrant journey, you talked about how when you moved to the first country, that was when it was like another layer was added to your identity. Like you realized there was another layer in terms of, beyond being a mom, a daughter, a first child, there was this additional layer of being Black, being added to it. So I think it's great that you had that experience. And you also mentioned how that experience has helped you to be a lot more prepared for your journey here in Canada. Yes. And correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like all of those experiences have now helped you to be adding lots and lots of value to the community that you currently serve. That's beautiful. So because I know I know you're engaged in a number of other activities. So would you like to share more about that in terms of maybe your volunteer activities and any other things that you do?
Yes. I'm a person of many parts. And it's important I say that because there's a proverbial people with 1 talent, 2 talents, and 5 talents. Very early on in my life, through mentorship, I realized I am one of the 5 talents people. And my goal in life is to be able to use all of those. So in addition to being an executive director, I volunteer on some boards. I volunteer in different committees, for example, the EDI committee of the City of Kitchener. I'm on the board of the Social Ventures Partners. At church, I work with the youth, and I also lead a small group for business, Christian business executives. Apart from being a mom and a sister and a wife, I love to cook a lot. And so no matter how busy I am, not out of duty of being a woman, but out of passion of mixing spices and different foodstuffs and creating delicious meals, I've earned the name Dancing Kitchen because I make that meal or bake that confectionery. It's a success, and I'm dancing before I even serve it. So my brother-in-law named me Dancing Kitchen because of that. So someone would ask, what is your hobby other than singing? I think my second hobby will be cooking. So if you took cooking away from me because of my position at the workspace, you're actually taking something that distresses me away from me. And so it's amazing, right? That some people find cooking as stressful, and I find that as a distressor. It's profound, but I love to cook.
Wow.
I don't like to eat, but I love to cook.
I think, and thank you for sharing that. It's funny how, and that's why we need to hear as many stories as possible, right? There's people react to things differently, people take things differently. So I would have maybe like 2 years ago, I would have said, oh, we have that in common. I love to cook. It's my love language, my giving love language. So that's how I show you that I love you, I care about you. So like I'm cooking, I'm doing all of those things. But in recent times, I've found it to be something that I don't know what happened. Somewhere down the line, it just became a stressor for me. So the thought of cooking has become such a difficult thing for me to bear right now. I think I'm still going to find my way back. I think so. But it's something I'm still trying to understand. That's why I said, it's why I said it's a distressor for you. And I'm in a season where right now, it's a huge stressor for me, and I used to love it. I loved cooking so much, but anyway, it's part of the journey, right? Thank you for sharing all of that. And I'm getting so much already, and it's very similar to some of the things that we've heard from a number of people that we've talked to, the power of mentorship. The power of mentorship, even though you were not actually saying, oh, go get a mentor, but you've mentioned mentorship like a mentor, maybe not less than 4 times in the short time that we started having this conversation. You've also talked about gratitude, the power of gratitude and the significance of your name, and that brings me to the issue of how a lot of people from our part of the world, we have names that carry some form of meaning, and we hold those meanings very dear, very close to our hearts. And so thank you for, at least bringing that up in the conversation. Thank you. So the next thing I would like you to talk about is the relationship between your experience from back home. I know because I know from back home in Nigeria, and your current position. So how are you able to make, is there any relationship first? And then how are you able to make that journey from, your experience from back home to where you are right now? The reason that's important is because a lot of people come here as, in different ways, but based on our own experience as some people skilled immigrants. So they qualify to come here on the basis of the number of years of experience that they have, but then they come here and it's a struggle for them to find a space in their field of expertise. So are you still in your field of expertise, and how are you able to make that?
There's a little story there.
Okay.
And I didn't realize this story's end until I got into Adventure for Change. So right out of university, my first job was 1 year of teaching. And then I quickly realized I didn't like writing lesson notes at high school level. And so I got into a non-for-profit at the time where I worked for 5 years. In that non-for-profit, I was the administrator. The first one, actually, I did the actual setting up of the office, setting up an accounting system, and all of the office administration things that you do day to day. The beautiful thing was my boss, which is the person who founded the non-for-profit, was a seasoned administrator who had spent over 20 years in public administration. And so she held the hand of this new graduate to learn everything administration for 5 years.
Right. And I think you mentioned how tough it was to...
Absolutely. I was going there. It was 5 tough years of learning from an older woman. She's 75 right now. So she over 30 years or more older than me, teaching me the rudiments by me making the mistakes. Exactly. Writing a letter in one way, and she's saying, this is not high school English language. I know you came out with an A+ in English, but this is work English language. And tuning me to write in a particular way and address people in a particular way and keeping records in a particular way. I left that job because I knew there was something more about my life. And I had, in my 4th year at the job, gone for a training in South Africa and spoken to the person who would end up being my next boss just about my life. And in that conversation, coaching conversation, I realized, there's something called organizational development consulting, or some people call it management consulting and training. And it sounded like me. And so I came back home, went ahead and did a master's in managerial psychology and a few certifications in training at the Center for Management Development back home. And that became an opportunity to start a business and go into the Lagos Business School, also called Pan-African University, now Pan-Atlantic University now, to do a certificate course in small business management. While doing this, Michael met me and he said, this business you're running, it will take you a few years to build it up.
Michael being who?
The man who ended up being my second boss.
Okay.
And he said, I think you should partner with me, because it was doing exactly what I was doing. I just started. He had done it for 5 years. He said, how about we be partners and do this together? And I said, let me give it a try. So I kept my brand name with me while trying to explore what this partnership would be like. It ended up being the best decision I made in my life, because not only did he become my boss, like my first boss who became my life mentor till today, he became another life mentor till today, who showed me the ropes, because he had just retired 5 years before as MD CEO of an insurance company that he had been MD CEO for 13 years.
Wow.
So again, I became directly exposed to, this time around, management and leadership, training entry-level staff and middle-level staff and supervisors and senior-level staffs and boards of directors at this very early stage of my career life. And so in 10 years of working in that place, I had traveled 4 continents and trained different levels of staff and seen firsthand the problems that organizations had and seen that every single organization, irrespective of industry, was the same.
Mm.
People were the same, structures were the same, systems were the same. And I could easily create frameworks and principles out of that 10 years journey because I got tools and exposure and experiences that I could use to solve any problem in any organization.
Right.
That became my passion. Now let's transition to Canada. I then came into Canada, and my first job was not in organizational development or training. It was in customer service because I had to pay the bills. And so within the first 2 months of my arrival, I just wanted to get any job. My any job was customer service.
Right.
But the beauty was this. In my first 4 months of working that job, I was looking for people like me. And through connections of fellow Nigerians, I met some Canadians in my industry who said to me, because what I had heard was I had to do some kind of program or course in a school to be able to get a good job. And then I met this amazing lady, Margaret is her name. In case she ever sees this, she knows I'm talking about her. And it was a phone call, and she'd asked me, "Oh, tell me about you." And I did. And she said, "Oh, what would you do if this happened?" I answered, "What would you do if this happened?" I answered. She was like, "Why do you want to go back to school?"
Sorry.
So she was giving me scenario questions.
What would you do
if this happened in an organization?
Okay.
And what would you do? What would be your solution?
Right.
And I was answering Margaret, and she said, "Why do you want to go back to school?" I said, "Because I heard if I don't go back to school, I won't get a job." She said, "That's a lie. I'm going to introduce you." But by the way, Margaret was in Toronto. And she said, "I'm going to introduce you to somebody in Kitchener who is a friend who can help you." And so that ended me up with my first Canadian mentor, Hannah. And Hannah Brown sat with me in a Tim Hortons in a Starbucks on King Street and asked me all the questions and said, "You can do this job. Why not enter this organization?" And that landed me at the Institute for Performance and Learning, the IFOPL.
Right.
And I began to attend their networking meetings, became a member, and I'm still a member till today. And a job opened up at Grand River Hospital. I applied, and with referral from Hannah, I got back into training and development. And I was there for a few years before this opportunity that came. The irony is important that I say that the same person who connected me with Margaret, that connected me with Hannah, was the same person who mentioned my name to the founding director at Adventure for Change. And that person, if that matters today, and I think it does, is Ayo Woduni. My story won't be complete without mentioning Ayo's name. It's profound. Ayo is where he is today. But I think it makes sense. Because if you give back, or if you think beyond yourself, it's a matter of time. You will get to bigger places. It's just a matter of time. I had to say that because, like I said, I had come in, an organization had introduced me to Ayo as, a fellow Nigerian who was in learning and development. I talked to him. And I remember his words were, "Truth is, I don't think I can help you at the level that you want to be, but I know people who can." And he did that introduction to Margaret and Margaret to Hannah and stepped out of the scene. But again, I don't know what conversation he was having with my founding director. And maybe the person said, "Do you know someone who can?" And again, he put my name forward. So mine cannot be a journey of a man-made or woman-made anybody. You can't write the story of my life from elementary school through high school, through university, till today without names being mentioned. I know I started my story by mentioning my first boss. But before her, I had this one mentor from the age of 6. He's biologically a cousin, but was living with us because he was in university and took my life, especially faith-wise, and discipled/mentored me till today. And I think you would observe that every single person I've mentioned, a common thread is that it's still today. They don't start and stop for some strange reason, and they've all met each other, by the way. It's only the Canadian ones that haven't met the Nigerian ones, but the 3 Nigerian core mentors all know each other because for some reason, in talking to one, the name of the last one comes up, and then they just meet. So I think that's the beauty of my life. And I don't know if you're going to take this out, but the first book I'm trying to write that I've been thinking about is titled Mentors and Coaches, the shoulders on which we rise to leadership. So it's very important that that's where I start my book writing from, because if I start from the topics that I have about me, I'm a disgrace. But if I start from these shoulders that have gotten me to where I am and that are leading me to the places I'm headed for, then it's a matter of time I'll get to me eventually.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. And I'm wondering why you said we might need to take it out, because it's funny that when you started talking and you know, that wasn't where you were supposed to. It wasn't like you did anything wrong.
Right.
Like you weren't supposed to start that hot. You know, you were going hot. You were giving it to us, and you jumped into. You were talking about mentorship, right? In my mind, I started thinking. I think this is in this season you had the 7th conversation, and in the first season we had 7 conversations. So you had the 14th conversation we're having, and I think almost everybody has mentioned mentorship, the role of mentorship. And then in my mind, I was thinking, how can we get people to be serious about mentorship? How can we get people to, because there are mentorship programs around, right? But for some reason, that juicy part doesn't come out for a lot of these mentorship relationships. So I think it's absolutely amazing that you're writing that book. One thing we need to do.
Okay, go ahead.
Sorry. One thing we need to do is we need to be following you people around. You have said you're writing that book. Give us a date.
No, I already told you the writer.
Okay, because I said he was writing a book. I even said I was going to follow up on it. That where is this book that you said you were writing that time? Because that book is needed.
Yeah, I'll tell you something which might be in the book. I don't know, that I think is, you're saying there's many mentorship programs, or maybe why they don't work, or they don't, I don't know, is that we treat mentorship as a program. Write reports.
Pass that for me, please.
Meet for networking. I don't think that's what mentorship is. I believe, based on what I have experienced, that mentorship is a decision. I decide to work with someone that needs mentorship. And that person decides to work with me. So even when I'm not available, they reach out. When they are not willing, I reach out. That common commitment is critical. Otherwise, it won't work. I mentioned to you my first mentor is now 60. My second one, 75. My third one, 61.
Right.
These people are way older than me, but would always reach out to me when I fail to. Because there are times
I remember you said, Mama said, so you didn't call me, Abby. You said Mama sent you a text message and said
they will. And
so you will not call me, Abby.
if I'm waiting for my mentee to call me all the time, then we'll have a failed relationship. If my mentee is waiting for me to call all the time, then we'll have a failed relationship.
So
but if there is a mutual commitment and sincerity to the cause, and it's about their success and not mine, their popularity and not mine, and it's vice versa, then we'll watch out for each other's back and never speak ill of each other.
What giving and giving and giving. I love it. Thank you. Thank you for sharing all of that. Thank you for taking us through that journey. From everything you said, also beyond mentorship, I think mentorship is also a form of relationships, right? And then, still gives birth to connections and all of those things. One thing I was able to pick from there also is the question of what do we make of ourselves? How do we present ourselves? When these opportunities come up for us, how do we use those opportunities? When those conversations, come up, when those opportunities to have those conversations come up, how do we show up? Because you said that, I think 2 times you got asked multiple questions over, different questions, and you were responding, not knowing that, your responses would lead somewhere. So you were ready. You were prepared to answer, maybe not to answer this question, but you had what you had.
Absolutely.
And you were ready to show up, and present yourself in the best possible way. Yeah. And that has led to, these journeys that you have been on. So thank you for, bringing that up and, talking about all of that. Thank you. Thank you. That's a remarkable journey, by the way. Thank you. So I wanted to also ask you in terms of, all of these things that you have shared and your journey, your personal journey, journeys come with challenges, right? There will be challenges along the way. So are you able to share any of those challenges you have gone through in your journey as an immigrant here in Canada, and how you were able to navigate those challenges? If you can also talk about some of the if any community resources came useful to you for navigating those challenges, that would be very helpful.
Absolutely. Let me start with the community resources. I only had access to one, and that was based on referral, I believe, when I first came, and that was the YMCA. So I'd been told about the YMCA's mentorship program for internationally trained professionals. I went for that program, and that was where I met Ayo. That was the introduction that happened. And then, the rest of the story, like they would say. So that was a very successful one, because the first thing they did was help me with my resume and then introduce me to a mentor, and that was it for me.
Yeah.
The other one I remember now was Kitchener-Waterloo Multicultural Center's International Trained Professionals Conference. What that conference, the only year that I went, did for me was make me realize there are more people like me that are as internationally trained, and the roadblocks that we experience. My takeaway from that particular conference was that I had to network, even though that's not a natural thing for me. I do not like to network.
Say it again.
I like to sit in my house.
No, the reason I'm saying you should say it again is a lot of people say things like, "Oh, I don't like networking. I don't want to do it." Did you not just say that it's not a natural thing for you? But you do it anyway.
I didn't like it. I struggled with it. I listened to that conference saying, "Oh my, they want me to do something hard."
Yeah.
But I also realized from that same conference, and I know the man who spoke that day, that there are different types of networking.
Yes, absolutely.
Not all of us would go to big spaces. Some of us like one-on-ones. And so I began to develop opportunities for one-on-ones.
I love that.
And that became my own style of networking. And I think even till today, my biggest networks are one-on-one style. So I think it's about finding what works for you and doing that. So those would be the two main resources at the time that enabled me thrive. And of course, my church. Oh, why would I forget that? That's a big support.
And your church being where?
Waterloo Pentecostal Assembly has been a huge support from day one. I think they were the earliest. So if you're going to arrange this video, it was Waterloo Pentecostal Assembly, and then the Y, and the KW Multicultural Center, because we come from a very strong faith background, and back home, that was also a strength. And so finding something similar here that were authentic from day one, hugs and welcomes and small groups supporting, helping with getting accommodation and all of those things very early on was just beautiful experience for us. Now, in terms of what was the first question?
The challenges.
The challenges.
Before you go on to the challenges, I wanted to quickly highlight something. So Waterloo Pentecostal Assembly is a multicultural church,
Absolutely.
Right? It's not I'm saying this because you're of Nigerian origin, so it's not a Nigerian church.
No, not at all.
So there's this notion sometimes when people think, oh, to get the help that I need to go to,
my home
church. Yeah. So it's interesting that you mentioned that they even helped with finding accommodation.
Like members of the church who were Nigerian. Absolutely.
Were Nigerian, but at least you found that support in the multicultural space.
Absolutely.
That's good. Thank you.
I mean, we're talking about over 70 or 60 languages and nationalities in one space. It's very beautiful for us.
Thank you.
Now, challenges. I think the first one in coming in was navigation. And that's why today at Adventure for Change, we have a system navigator.
Okay.
Because it was knowing what existed in the new space. My one joke that I like to share in terms of navigation was knowing how bad the weather can change in Canada. So we had landed in December 2017. And the first time we had come to Canada on vacation in 2015, it was summer. And then we came back in 2017 to land finally as permanent residents. And I had been warned, come with a jacket, get a jacket. And I listened. But we left the house on the one day at 15 degrees in December. Went to Conestoga Mall. I dressed up for it. And then we got into the mall, started from the Old Navy side, the very main entrance, but ended up at the Zers side with a cart filled with food items that we're taking back home. got out of theirs, pushed the cart, headed for a car that is in front of the Old Navy side, not realizing the cart can lock. Unfortunately, the temperature had dropped significantly. I did not have meetings on. I did not have a hat. I did not have a neck warmer. I had a jacket for 15 degrees. So when the cart locked and we couldn't move, my husband said, you know what, okay, let me take the kids and go to the car. We will run. We'll be back in no time. So I was standing on the spot in what at this time probably had become 2 degrees. Most likely it had become very cold. Without the appropriate gear, I was crying. So they came back meeting me, crying on the spot, very frozen. And I felt like I'm going back home. That was a challenge. And of course, like I said, beyond that, what else to do? But very quickly, and that's the advantage of education versus the people we serve who don't have the education, I began to ask the right questions. Where do we go for this? Which grocery stores are the cheapest? It doesn't have to be the one closest to me. How do you navigate sales? I remember I'd lived in another country, so I could ask those questions. And I think it was a matter of 3 months. We knew where to go for what, how to navigate healthcare and all the paperwork and housing and all of that information. So I guess that big system navigation challenge, what it gave me as a tool is, the first one was networking, right? We said that before. Now it's time to talk about asking the right question from the right people, but also being willing to go online yourself to ask the right questions.
Yes.
Because I found out one big challenge was asking the wrong people questions and them saying they said, and then I Google and find out,
that's not it.
That's not the right thing. So it's good to ask people questions, but Canada is such an amazing place that almost all the information you need as an internationally trained professional is somewhere online.
Yes.
So go there and Google it, you will find. And if you want to ask somebody, let that be a double check of what you already have. So being willing to do that research and ask the right questions enabled a lot of that. The other challenge was understanding in the midst of a first job for me and my spouse, my husband, both first jobs were minimum wages jobs. So knowing how to spend and save as at that time, not knowing what tomorrow held, and then living with that initial means at that smaller level, and then getting the bigger jobs and realizing how much more we could save and invest. Is really the point I'm trying to make very early on, as opposed to coming in and living large from day one, like my friends are doing, not realizing my friends have been here for so many years. Being willing to cut my coat according to the current cloth that Canada presents me with, and then one day at a time, growing that cloth to become bigger and better. With savings and investment, those were all lessons. Challenges that we faced that I turned around. Remember, my name is Gratitude. So for some reason, I know how to turn challenges around and make them lessons and learning curves to enable my life become better and help other people become better.
That's remarkable. Thank you for sharing that. I really love how you said, how to turn challenges around and make them lessons and learning curves. That is amazing.
One last challenge I'd like to share. It's a more generic one, but I'm intentionally sharing it because of my position, is the concept of racism. And as a Black African woman, educated, I'll say that again, as a Black educated African woman, I think we sometimes can be interpreted as threats in many spaces that I have found myself in Canada. But that challenge, again, here's how I flipped it. Navigate it from humility, listening, but not being quiet.
Be humble. Listen, but don't be quiet.
That's a very huge balance to strike.
Tough.
Because it sounds like when you're humble, then you keep quiet.
Mm-hmm.
You can be humble, you can listen, but for every time you are supposed to speak, you will speak up. But you see, this is the beauty of your speaking. It's laced with humility. It's laced with respect. It's laced with the willingness to hear others. And so often it's better received than if it is words that come out of pride or a know-it-all kind of attitude. So I think that challenge, that was how I dealt with it. And today, there is no space I can speak in, but I'll listen first, so that when I speak, you will recognize that I listen to you first. And then I'm not just speaking out of what I think, I'm speaking out of what I have heard and I know.
I love it. And you spoke about that earlier also in terms of how going on your first immigration journey helped you to realize that listening just helps, just listening and trying to understand the other person's perspective. And I agree, that's a tough balance to strike, to be humble, to listen, but to not keep quiet. Like it's a tough balance to strike, but if you're able to strike it, I certainly know that it's a good one. It's a good one. So thank you for sharing that. Thank you for, taking us on that journey. And everything you're sharing is so relatable. I think people are going to be absolutely blessed by everything you're sharing, honestly, because it's very, very relatable. So my question now is, this is not on the script. It's not something that you might be prepared for, but it's something that's cropping up for me as I'm listening to you. You said your first journey, and I can relate with that. My first job too was, funny enough, my first job was not minimum wage, but I had to leave the job because my daughter was not in daycare, my husband didn't start work, all of that. And then I now went back to do customer service, which was minimum wage. So my question is, one can get comfortable at some point.
Absolutely.
You can get comfortable. The bills are being paid now. And then there's also the challenge of the family. You have to do so many things. It can be a lot to remain mindful of the things that you want to do. So how were you able to manage to remain mindful and to keep your eye on the ball for the next step, even despite all of the challenges of being a mom and all of the things that you had to deal with?
The truest way to answer that question is to take us back to right when I graduated. I wrote some things down.
Oh.
And there are many.
Okay.
And they were the different things I thought I wanted to do before I was 40. And I began to take them one after the other. Now, what I realize now, and I've shared this in many places, is that they didn't follow the order in which I wrote them at all.
Yeah. Did they ever?
But I kept doing them. And I had shared them with all my mentors. And so they kept me accountable. The one that I thought after I clocked 40 and I didn't do it, and I said, okay, done. That maybe I won't do it anymore after one attempt. I'm starting it in September. And that one, I'm sure the only reason I'm eventually starting it was my mentors never let me rest. They kept asking me, you are supposed to do this. You know that is your next level by the time you're 50. You cannot, and they were on my case. So I say all of that to say, no matter how hard it is, I would encourage everybody, even if you never did this before, to stop now and do it, is to have a vision board. It doesn't have to be beautiful. It doesn't have to be classy. But there must be something that says, here's where I know I'm supposed to be in X number of years. It doesn't matter what I'm doing now.
Again,
I have to get
something
there.
that says, here's where I know I am supposed to be.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Where am I supposed to be? What am I supposed to be doing? How do I plan to do it? And then take it one day at a time. No worries. We have all this time. The one I can do now, I will do. At the time I could study, I studied. There's a challenge I didn't talk about, but has to come now because of this that I'm talking about. And it was the challenge of being a wife and a mother, especially the mother part. I went for my first set of lectures of my master's with a 6-month-old baby. That girl is 17 years old in June.
Wow.
And I remember my first day of the lecturer saying, why do I have a baby in my class? And I said, because I don't have a mother to take care of her and I am her mother. what do you want me to do, sir?
Oh.
And he said, I'll allow you today, but I don't want to see that baby back next time. Well, next time was next week, and I still didn't have childcare, and I was back home. And so I sat outside to listen to the lecture with my baby in my hands.
Wow.
And then subsequently, we got that sorted out. And here in Canada, with the kind of childcare system that exists, that was a huge challenge for me as a working mom. But like I said, I think that became a motivation to ensure I didn't stay at the level of customer service as brilliant as the job was. Because it was either that I earned more so I could pay for childcare, or I got a subsidy which existed when I came so that I could work in the next level. The beauty is that I did get subsidy to put my number 3 in childcare so that I could work at Grand River and so that I do the work I'm doing now. And for my 4th child, I am paying, but I can afford it because there's now this, I think, region-wide subsidy that makes it better affordable for me to be a working mom. So I think what I'm just trying to say is that if you have it written down and you shared with these mentors we've been talking about, something would always remind you that you can't stop till you get to the finish line. So if I don't have a finish line, where am I headed for? What am I running towards? But if I have a finish line, if it's a 4 by 400 meters, when I finish the first 100, I won't stop because there's a second lap and there's a third lap. And until I cross that line and cheer either as first position or second, doesn't matter. I have to cross the finish line. So my challenge to somebody today, and I don't know where I'm going here, is what is your finish line? Your finish line said, become a lawyer or a doctor. Just using the typical African examples. And you got here and someone said, oh, you're never going to be that. You better just go be A. You can be A to earn income. But let that income be used to be the next thing that you're supposed to be. I think that's what happened in my case. Was all of that income was for me and my husband certifications. And people say, why are you spending all this money on certifications? To be A. There's a finish line. And so it can be a stepping stone. All of the, maybe it's factory or customer service or detailing or cleaning or cooking. It can be a finish line, but it can also be a stepping stone to a finish line. If my dream is to own the biggest restaurant in Kitchener-Waterloo, and all I'm doing right now is cooking for my kitchen, that's a stepping stone. Keep cooking from your kitchen. Eventually, you have the money to build a restaurant. If my dream is to be an entrepreneur and build a world-class makeup business, and all I'm doing right now is carrying a box of makeup from house to house, keep going from house to house with the makeup box. Eventually, you have boxes filled with makeup in a beautiful studio doing exactly what you want to do. So I think that would be my answer. Keep doing it. But don't forget the finish line. There must be a finish line.
Love it. I love it. Thank you. Thank you for sharing all of that. I think that's, let's take that and do with it whatever we want. In my language, they will say, he who has ears, let him hear. So thank you very much for sharing that. So on to, I think you've spoken a little bit about this already, but just in case you have, something additional, and I know you will have something additional in terms of the challenges that immigrants have to go through. In fact, the question you just answered now is very tailored to that. Being unemployed, being underemployed. A number of people have said they've lost their confidence. I got a call from someone who said, I was doing so well. I was doing well, established. And all of a sudden, the most basic thing in my career, I don't seem to be able to do it. I don't seem to be confident enough to know that I can do it. Right. So, and then it can take a toll on people's mental health. It can take a toll on so many things in their lives. So what would you say to people dealing with challenges like this in terms of being underemployed, being unemployed, losing their confidence, struggling with their mental health as a result of all of the challenges that come with, settling and thriving in Canada? What would you say to them?
So I know I had addressed those who had clarity about where they were headed and encouraged them to keep going. But I also recognize there are those who even back home, they were given. You know, we have that popular saying, jam, I was given. Now, in case that person was given banking, insurance was given. That was what was available.
They just fell into the career. Yes.
The beauty about Canada is something called transferable skills. Yes. That's what made me do the training and development at Grand River Hospital instead of waiting for a management consulting position. So the question, what I'll push that person is, what else can you do? What are the skills you have? Oh, I make hair, I cook, I paint, I draw, I name whatever the other things are. Have that list and then explore all the possible opportunities in those. At least one door will open. That's my first response.
Explore all the possible opportunities.
Every single one, because there will be a space somewhere. I'm so confident. The second one, in addition to exploring all their experience, is to never give up. At this point, permit me to bring in my husband's story. He was back home a fire safety professional who had risen to become a fire chief. Came into Canada, went to 3 or 4 fire stations to introduce himself. I'm not just a fire chief. I'm a fire chief trained in Nigeria, Cameroon, the United States, the UK, England, and the United Arab Emirates. I can do this work. And then I got my CRSP in Canada.
CRSP being what?
The Canadian Safety
something
Registered Board, something like that.
Okay.
And all of them told him, for you to work in fire safety in Canada, you have to start from ground zero. A fire chief, having worked 18 years at the Muritala Mohammed International Airport, a trainer of trainers, because all of the certifications were not just health and safety, it was also to be a trainer in that line. And so he sat down and we said, where are your transferable skills in Canada? Because you're not going to start from ground zero in fire safety. You're already in your 40s. And we realized, well, it has OSHA and NIBOSH and all of the different health and safety certifications from the different countries I mentioned. And we said, okay, health and safety. Let's see what that space is like in Canada.
Right.
And I think that's actually what made him do the CRSP. So to work in health and safety in Canada, he needed to do the CRSP. So he did. And 3 months after he did the CRSP, he got his first health and safety job.
Wow.
And currently he works with the University of Waterloo as a health safety and environment partner. And so for him, it was a rediscovery of an entirely new path. I mean, not entirely new. Fire safety is safety, but it's different.
Yeah.
Because he had to abandon all his 43 fire certifications.
43. Wow.
I don't have 20 certifications, but that's 43.
Wow.
To be able to build a career for himself in Canada. So you see how different his story is from mine.
Yes.
And he would always tell people, when you've tried what you know, stop and try what else you know and see what you need to do to thrive in that in Canada.
Love it. Oh, wow, that is profound. When you try what you know, stop and try what else you know to see, and that's amazing. The other thing I picked from what you were saying is taking stock. Sometimes we're so we really just want to dive into it and just do stuff, get a job, do this. We're not taking stock. We're not taking stock of what we have. We maybe for the past 10, 20 years, we've been in a particular space and we're thinking, that's what I know. That's what I can do. Have you taken stock? Have you taken stock? You talked about transferable skills, of all the skills you gained all through that time that you were working in that space. Maybe you can apply those skills in, a slightly different capacity. And I love that you shared the story of your husband and, kind of transitioning or make it maybe adapting from, fire safety to health and safety. That is a powerful story. Thank you.
Can I just add this? is that sometimes we forget that every single experience we've had in life is for somewhere we're headed.
Yes.
So at the beginning, I told you about my not-for-profit 5 years, plus another 10 years in management consulting and training. And then I would get a job in 2022, and I would need both. Because as executive director of a non-for-profit, I would need excellent management, consulting and training skills, plus that exposure that I'd had with community development. Because in those 5 years, I had certifications in community development, trained the trainer as a community professional, and so on and so forth. And when I got into the organizational development part of life, I had so many trainings in that too. How did I forget to say that learning never stops? And so
everything you said
that has come
that
here
direction.
has to know learning never stops.
Thank you. And I don't think you forgot. I think everything you've been saying has been pointing in that direction. Like learning, it must never stop. And you talked about not ever giving up. Like it's not an option. Just keep going. And I love something else that you said about exploring, like just explore, and knowing that one door will open. What's most powerful in that for me is that conviction. Sometimes when you feel like something is not available, you can give up, and because it's not there, you think it's not there. Right. But if you know it's there, even if you continue to knock and it's not opening, and you're checking and it's not happening, because you know it's there, you know those opportunities, you know the doors will be opened at some point. You keep going, right? So I like the fact that you shared that. Thank you so much for sharing that. So we're getting to the end of the conversation. So if you could look back now at your new immigrant self in December 2017, what would you say to yourself?
Everything bends to time.
Everything bends to time.
If you allow time, you're patient, you're hopeful, and you stay the course, you'll get there. Because that's the only way I can explain my life story. Just allowing for time. Just being patient, doing it one day at a time. When can you do the certification? Do it. My certification was in Toronto. So I was going Kitchener, Toronto, trying to get that done in winter. Learned the underground, beautiful place. And that's the only time I've ever used it. So do what you can. And allow time and God do what He can. Because at the end of the day, there's things you can't do anything about. You can't do anything about it. So why stress over what you can't do anything about? So that which you can do everything you can do. Do the professional courses, meet the people, network, make the calls, send the appreciation cards and letters, make the phone calls, visit. Everything you can do.
Wow.
And then leave time and chance to do the rest.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. And we're moving to the fun part now. Thank you. It's been amazing, honestly, learning, hearing, and sometimes it's also about relearning, right? Hearing some of those things over and over again. I have particularly learned something about mentorship, and I just realized that I'm wrong with my, not wrong, but like there's something I need to be doing with my mentorship relationship, right? So I'm gonna take a step back and make amends regarding that. So thank you very much for that. So now we're moving on to the mystery activity. So what that is you would choose a number from 1 to 14. And whatever number you choose, I will tell you what the task is, and you will have to do it. Is that okay?
8.
Be coming down.
Lucky number.
Be coming down.
I'm
not saying you should pick number yet. Okay, 1 minute. Okay, so let me go here. 8. Oh, there's something happening. Honestly. Okay, so 8 says, sing a few lines from your favorite song.
Lovely. And my voice
I knew you would love it. Why is just
Oh, how do I sing with this voice? Okay, let's sing.
You're good.
have many favorite songs. I'm just looking for the best. What's this lead? Okay. I love you, Lord, for your mercy never fails me. All my days have been held in your hands. From the moment that I wake up until I lay my head, I will sing of the goodness of God. All my life you have been faithful. And all my life you have been so, so good. And how do I sing when my voice is
I
broken?
love it. You're doing great.
With every breath that I am able, I will sing of the goodness of God.
That's one of my absolute favorite songs. It's a powerful song. Can you please pass the tissue?
It doesn't make sense that I'm singing or talking like this. It doesn't.
But it's beautiful, honestly. It was beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for singing that. Thank you. I wanted to join you, but I was worried for you. If I had joined you in the singing. I hope the house doesn't come down. Okay, thank you very much for singing that. It's a beautiful song. It's a beautiful message. And it still aligns with your name, gratitude, right? So thank you. Okay, so just before we go into the next fun stuff, which will be the final thing, do you want to share a word of encouragement or inspiration for newcomers and immigrants out there?
It's hard living home. We come and face multitudes of emotions, mental health challenges, doubts, discouragements. We're not sure of who we are anymore, identity crisis, hopelessness, and pain. We're told we're not good enough. We have an accent. We roll our R's or we don't roll them enough. Our T's, especially if you came from Nigeria, was water. Now you have to call it water. Costs is getting worse with inflation and everything just looks bleak. But I want you to know that it's a matter of time. For me, it's been almost 2017 till now, 7 years. And the stories I shared today are the good sides. You will have your own good stories eventually.
Yes.
My encouragement is that you don't die or give up or lose hope or hate people or commit a crime before the testimony comes, before the joy comes, before the story that you will tell comes. So hang in there. Call somebody. Pour out your heart. Cry. Look for encouragement. Write a journal. Write your dream. Paste it on a wall and speak to it every day. And please, when that testimony happens, when that story happens, when that good thing happens, write a book, write a song, call somebody and celebrate. Go for lunch, get a massage, have a manicure, pedicure. Celebrate that win, no matter how small it is. Because when you celebrate the small win, then you have the opportunity to celebrate the big one. I look forward to your good news. I look forward to swapping the baton of this chair with you when your time of good testimonies and stories comes.
Yes,
Thank
you. Thank you. That's beautiful. Thank you so much. But when we're not talking about manicure and pedicure. I said, Nicola, this manicure and pedicure.
And we should make that our lunch date.
Let's make it our date, honestly.
I have one with Falake as well.
Oh, okay. What do they all?
A manicure, pedicure lunch date.
Right. Now we're moving on to the 100-second question spree. So what it's about is there are a number of questions here. Just simple questions, nothing too serious, right? that I'll keep asking you. I'll set the timer for 1 minute 40 seconds. And then once it's 1 minute 40 seconds, we'll stop. But if there's any question you're not comfortable with, you can just skip. And
the winner gets $100,000.
Yes, our producer is a big boy. So we're gonna start now. Okay. Movies, music, or games?
Music.
What's the title of the book you're currently reading?
Heart of Change, John Carter.
Okay. What's your favorite Canadian fast food brand?
Popeyes.
One word to summarize your Canadian journey so far.
Learning.
3 things in your mental wellness toolkit.
Sleep, journaling, walk.
What's one aspect of your culture that you're always proud to share?
Fashion.
One myth you'd like to debunk about Black African immigrants?
They're aggressive.
One resource you wish you had when you first arrived in Canada?
Skip. I don't know.
Okay. What's the first thing you do in the face of challenging situations?
Stop.
What's one aspect of the Canadian culture that you've embraced since immigrating?
Smiling. Without saying hi.
What's an unexpected community resource that's been a game changer for you?
My community, my actual Nigerian community.
So finish the sentence. We can embrace our cultural differences by
listening to one another.
What's one thing you wish you knew before moving to Canada?
How cold it can get. Like the feeling, not the temperature.
Yeah, okay. If you could invent one key resource for newcomers, what would it be?
A space to listen to one another and comfort, share, embrace, love one another. Just come in there, grab a drink, grab a snack, and just talk.
Right. That's beautiful. Oh, wow. Thank you so much for being here today. It's been wonderful talking to you. I have personally learned so much. I know that our community will learn a lot from hearing your story, hearing your nuggets, and all the wonderful things you shared. And we wish you continued joy, success, growth in your journey. And we cannot wait to have that book. Mentorship or Mentors and Coaches. Yes. I've noted the name of the book. We cannot wait to have that book. I would be reading that when it's out. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Yes.
My name is Oluseun Olayinka, and I inspire people to make changes for themselves and their communities. And I'm here on Rising Strong video series with the one and only Ola.